She was born into a life of luxury as the only daughter of a billionaire, but all the money in the world couldn't save her from the aggressive cancer that was slowly taking her life, until the day of her final birthday. When the little girl made a heart-stopping wish in front of everyone, a wish so unexpected, so pure, and so powerful that it changed not only her fate, but also the lives of every adult in the room, including her father, who had tried to fix everything with wealth, and the woman who had given the child something money couldn't buy. And when she spoke those words, no one was prepared for what happened next. Before we continue with this story, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video, because when you stop doing this, YouTube understands that you don't like this content and stops recommending good stories like this. Oh, and don't forget to comment below where you're watching us from. We love to know that. The Carter mansion was huge, full of expensive furniture, polished floors, and long hallways that always seemed too quiet. Everything inside looked perfect, but there was no feeling of happiness or comfort. Lily Carter, a 5-year-old girl with pale skin and tired eyes, spent most of her days sitting near the window in her bedroom, watching the garden outside. She was fighting an aggressive cancer, the same disease that had taken her mother when Lily was only 1 year old. Because of that loss, her father, William Carter, had changed completely. Once a warm and attentive man, he had thrown himself into work, spending long hours away from home, trying to avoid anything that reminded him of pain. The house was full of nurses, doctors, and staff paid to take care of Lily, but none of them filled the emotional emptiness she felt every day. They treated her properly, gave her medicine, checked her temperature, and followed schedules. But no one really sat with her just to talk or hold her hand. William kept buying toys, clothes, and anything he thought might help, but none of those things reduced the loneliness. What Lily truly needed could not be bought. Lily spent many afternoons staring at the world outside the glass. She watched the flowers move when the wind passed through the garden. She watched the birds land on the branches and fly away again. She imagined what it would be like to run, jump, or play outside like other children, but her body felt too weak, and the nurses never allowed her to try. They spoke to her with routine kindness, always formal, calling her Miss Carter instead of Lily, like she was a fragile object instead of a little girl. Sometimes Lily tried to smile at them, hoping they would smile back in a real way, but their expressions were always controlled and distant. Her room was filled with stuffed animals and expensive dolls, but most of them stayed untouched, lined up on shelves like decoration instead of toys. William visited her from time to time, usually at night, when he arrived from work already exhausted. He would sit by her bed for a few minutes, ask how she felt, kiss her forehead, and leave again before she could say anything she really wanted to say. Lily never complained out loud, but inside she felt a growing sadness, a kind of silence that was heavier than the silence in the house. William believed he was doing everything right, at least in the way adults think. He hired the best doctors, paid for the best treatments, and made sure Lily had every physical comfort. But he did not realize how alone she felt, or how much she missed something simple: affection. He convinced himself that distance was necessary, that being strong meant not showing emotions, that working harder would protect Lily. In reality, it only made the house colder. The nurses spoke quietly, the doors closed softly, and even the footsteps seemed to disappear in the hallways. William often walked past photos of his wife and daughter without looking at them. Remembering hurt too much, so he didn't remember at all. He stayed locked in his office or out of the house, pretending everything was under control. But the truth was clear. He did not know how to be a father anymore, and the little girl who needed him most was learning to accept that love was something other people had. Lily's sickness made every day feel longer. Some mornings she woke up feeling dizzy before she even opened her eyes. Other days she felt strong enough to sit in bed and draw, but the drawings were always quiet too. Houses, trees, clouds, nothing with people. She rarely laughed, and when she did, the sound was soft and short, like she wasn't sure she was allowed to be happy. Sometimes she talked to her stuffed bear, pretending it could answer back. She told it about dreams she barely remembered, about the mother she had never known, about how she wondered what it felt like to be held. The bear never answered, but Lily kept talking anyway because no one else listened that way. One afternoon, she gathered enough courage to ask one of the nurses if she could go outside for just 5 minutes. The nurse smiled politely and said the doctor didn't recommend it. Lily didn't insist. She knew the answer before she asked. The house was safe, organized, and filled with rules, but inside all that structure, she felt like a small bird trapped in a cage. Everything continued like that, day after day, until the arrival of a new caregiver changed the routine. Her name was Grace Miller, a woman in her mid-30s who did not come from a rich family and had no polished appearance. She arrived with a simple suitcase, modest clothes, and a calm expression. The other nurses noticed immediately that she was different, not because of her background, but because of the way she looked around the house. She didn't seem impressed by the luxury. Instead, she seemed to notice what was missing. When she met William for the first time, she shook his hand firmly and looked him in the eyes, something many of the staff avoided doing. She listened to the medical instructions carefully, took notes, and didn't interrupt. But when William spoke about Lily like a medical case and not a child, something in Grace's face showed quiet disagreement, even though she remained respectful. She wasn't there just to follow orders. She was there because she believed children needed more than medicine to heal, and she felt that Lily was surrounded by things, but starved for connection. Grace walked through the house for the first time, introduced to the staff, and then led to Lily's room. Before entering, she paused at the door, sensing the atmosphere, clean, expensive, and heavy with sadness. Then she stepped inside and saw Lily sitting near the window with her small body covered by a soft blanket, looking at the garden again like she always did. Lily turned her head slowly, expecting to see just another nurse, but instead she found a gentle pair of eyes watching her with real attention. Grace didn't rush to speak. She didn't adjust the pillows or check the machines first. She simply smiled, not a forced smile, not a polite smile, but a warm, human smile that Lily hadn't seen in a long time. And that was how the silent mansion, full of walls and echoes and routines, received something new, something it had been missing for years. Grace Miller had arrived, carrying nothing fancy, but bringing something the house had forgotten how to hold: tenderness. Grace started her days in the mansion without making any noise or sudden changes. She did simple things first, like preparing Lily's meals instead of letting the other nurses handle it. She would sit beside Lily while the girl ate, even if Lily only took a few bites. She began reading stories to her in a calm voice, choosing books with colorful pictures and short sentences. When Lily's hair needed brushing, Grace didn't rush or pull. She talked to her while she brushed, telling small things about the day, even if Lily didn't respond. At first, Lily only watched her in silence, studying every movement, trying to understand who this woman was and why she seemed different. Grace didn't ask for anything in return. She didn't force conversation or try to act cheerful. She simply stayed close, letting Lily get used to her presence. The other nurses kept working the same way they always had, following schedules and rules, but they noticed Lily looking more alert when Grace entered the room. Even the staff members who usually ignored emotions began to realize that something was changing. The house still looked the same, but the atmosphere around Lily's room felt less empty, as if someone had finally turned on a light that had been off for a long time. Little by little, Lily began to react to the attention she was receiving. The first time she smiled at Grace, it was small, almost shy, but Grace noticed immediately and smiled back without making a big deal of it. After that, Lily became braver. She started asking simple questions: what time it was, what story they would read next, whether Grace liked drawing. Some days, she held Grace's hand when she was tired or scared of a medical procedure, and Grace always stayed with her, never leaving until Lily relaxed again. One afternoon, Lily surprised everyone by asking to sit on Grace's lap while they looked at the garden together. It was the first time she had asked for physical affection in years. The nurses exchanged looks, not knowing how to react. From that moment on, Lily started to laugh more often, not loudly, but enough to break the silence that had filled the house. Grace didn't try to replace the doctors or the medicines, but she gave Lily something the others had forgotten to give: company. She spoke to her like she was a real child, not a patient trapped in a room. She didn't treat her illness like the only thing that defined her. The more time they spent together, the more Lily reached out, choosing Grace instead of toys, books, or screens. The bond was forming quietly, but strongly. William noticed the difference much later than the others because he was rarely home long enough to see it. Still, he couldn't ignore the changes. When he passed Lily's door, he heard soft laughter and small conversations instead of silence. He saw Lily sitting up more often instead of lying weak on the bed. During the few moments he visited her, she looked at him with brighter eyes, not the tired and distant look he had gotten used to. At first, William didn't know how to feel. Part of him was relieved, and part of him felt left out, like someone else had stepped into a space he didn't know how to fill. He watched Grace from a distance, impressed but confused about why she succeeded where he had failed. He wondered if he should thank her or apologize to her, but he didn't know how to start either conversation. Instead, he stayed quiet, observing things he never expected to see again. Lily playing with crayons, Lily giggling during a story, Lily reaching out to hold someone's hand without fear. William didn't understand all of it, but he knew one thing for sure. His daughter was not just surviving anymore, she was living. The connection between Lily and Grace grew stronger every day. Lily began waiting for Grace in the mornings, sitting up in bed before she arrived. Sometimes she asked Grace to help her choose clothes, even though she rarely left the room. Other times, she asked for the same story to be read again and again, just to keep Grace beside her longer. Grace didn't complain, even when the days were long or when Lily's pain made everything harder. She learned how Lily liked her food cut, how she got scared when doctors mentioned new treatments, and how she calmed down when someone rubbed her back slowly. The mansion, which once felt heavy and frozen, began to change in small ways. The staff stopped whispering. The halls didn't feel so empty. Even the rooms that no one used felt less cold, as if the sound of one child's gentle laughter was enough to wake a whole house from sleep. No one said these things out loud, but everyone felt them. When Grace walked through the halls, heads lifted. When Lily called her name, the nurses paused, realizing the child finally trusted someone. It was a quiet miracle, built day by day, without plans or announcements. One morning, Lily asked for paper and crayons and spent a long time drawing, while Grace organized her medicines. Lily didn't explain what she was doing, and Grace didn't interrupt her. When the drawing was finished, Lily held it out with both hands, nervous but proud. The picture showed two figures holding hands, one taller, one smaller, with a red heart drawn between them. Grace stared at the picture longer than Lily expected. Her eyes filled with tears she didn't try to hide. Lily looked confused at first, thinking she had done something wrong. But then Grace knelt beside the bed and hugged her gently, something she had never done before without Lily asking. That drawing opened a door inside Grace that she had kept closed for years. She remembered her own daughter, who had loved drawing too, a little girl she had lost long before she ever met Lily. For a long time, Grace had believed she would never be able to love a child that way again. But this picture, simple and full of meaning, proved her wrong. It showed her something that wasn't spoken in words. Lily didn't see her as just a nurse anymore. She saw her as someone important, someone safe, someone loved. Grace cried quietly, not from sadness, but from the shock of feeling something she thought she had lost forever. She understood then that her place in the mansion was no longer just a job. She was not there only to follow rules or give medicine. Lily had chosen her in a way that no contract or instruction ever could. And deep inside, Grace realized she had chosen Lily too. Something in her heart locked into place, firm and real. She wasn't just caring for a child who needed help. She was protecting a child who had filled an empty space inside her, the same way she had filled an empty space in Lily. That moment changed everything. Not with a loud announcement, but with a drawing made by small hands, handed to her like a gift. In that instant, Grace understood her role completely. She was not only a caregiver, she was a mother again, even if life had given her that role in an unexpected house with an unexpected child, in the middle of a story neither of them planned. The day of Lily's 5th birthday did not look like a traditional celebration in a big mansion. There were no balloons hanging from the ceiling, no loud music, and no crowd of guests. Instead, the room was quiet, warm, and prepared especially for Lily. Grace had woken up early to bake a small cake in the mansion's kitchen, something simple because she knew Lily could not eat much sugar. The cake was covered with soft white frosting and had 5 colorful candles on top, each one representing a year of Lily's life. Lily sat in a chair decorated with a thin ribbon, wearing a clean dress that Grace helped her choose. She looked excited, but also a little tired, because her illness always took most of her strength. William stood a few steps away, watching everything as if he was trying to understand how a celebration could exist without expensive decorations or guests. For the first time in a long while, he wasn't thinking about work or phone calls. He was only looking at Lily, and he noticed that she seemed more alive than he had ever seen her on any previous birthday. The table was small, the cake was simple, but there was something powerful in the air, something he couldn't name yet. When it was time to sing, Grace stood beside Lily, helping her sit up a little straighter in her chair. The candles were lit, and their small flames reflected in Lily's eyes. The nurses gathered quietly at the back of the room, not as workers, but as witnesses. Grace sang the birthday song softly, making sure Lily didn't feel overwhelmed, and Lily smiled the whole time, even though breathing wasn't easy for her. William didn't sing, but his eyes never left his daughter. For the first time, he wasn't watching from a distance like a stranger. He was present, really present. When the song ended, everyone waited for Lily to close her eyes and make a wish, like every child does on their birthday. But Lily didn't hurry. She looked down at the cake, then at the candles, then up at Grace, as if she already knew her wish and wanted to say it out loud, instead of keeping it inside her head. Grace expected Lily to wish for strength, or maybe to ask to go outside, or to get a new toy. William thought she might ask to feel less sick, or maybe to go to school like other kids. No one imagined what she was truly about to say. Before anyone said anything, Lily reached out and took Grace's hand. Her fingers were small and cold, but she held firmly, like it was the most important thing she could do. Grace leaned closer without thinking, already feeling her heart beat faster. Lily then spoke in a slow but clear voice, filled with pure honesty. She didn't whisper, she didn't hesitate, she didn't try to be dramatic. She simply said the words exactly how they came to her heart. "I want you to be my mother until the day I die, Grace." The room froze, not because the sentence was sad, but because it was real. There was no confusion in her tone, no doubt, no fear of being rejected. She said it like it was the most natural birthday wish in the world. The nurses lowered their heads, moved but unsure how to react. Grace opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Her eyes instantly filled with tears she couldn't hold back. William felt a pressure inside his chest, the kind he had ignored for years, the kind that came from feelings he refused to feel. Grace finally let the tears fall. She didn't pretend to be strong or hide her emotions. She knelt next to Lily, still holding her hand, and cried the way a person cries when love and pain hit at the same time. She had not expected that request. She had given Lily care, patience, and affection, but she never imagined the little girl would see her as something so much bigger. William turned his face away as soon as he felt the burning behind his eyes. He wasn't used to crying, not even when his wife died. He had taught himself to shut everything down and keep moving, because he thought pain disappeared when ignored. But hearing Lily call Grace her mother broke something he didn't even know was still inside him. He felt ashamed, grateful, confused, and powerless all at once. The silence in the room was no longer the same silence the house used to hold. This silence was full, not empty. Everyone understood that Lily didn't ask for toys or miracles or a life without sickness. She only asked to keep the love she already found, and that made her wish heavier and stronger than any other child's request. William stood still, fighting every reaction he wanted to hide, while Grace kept Lily's hand in both of hers. She didn't try to correct the girl or say, "But I'm just your caregiver." She didn't talk at all. She just cried and nodded slightly, because she knew that love couldn't be explained with rules or titles. Lily smiled softly, happy just to have said what she truly felt. She didn't know how long she would live. She didn't know if her body would ever get better. But she knew she didn't want to live whatever time she had left without Grace by her side. That was her wish. That was her truth. The candles were still burning, but no one rushed to blow them out. The birthday celebration had become something else, something bigger than cake and candles. It had become a moment where every wall that had been built inside that mansion finally cracked. The room wasn't full of decorations, but it was full of meaning. Lily had given a gift instead of receiving one. She reminded everyone what real love looked like. The last candle went out on its own, the wax already soft from the heat. Lily leaned against Grace, tired but peaceful, and the nurses slowly stepped out of the room, giving them space. William remained where he was, staring at the scene, realizing that the life he had built with money and silence had never given his daughter what she needed. Grace wasn't wealthy. She didn't have power. She didn't have a famous name. But she had given Lily something no one else had, a mother's heart. And Lily, with all her weakness, had given Grace something just as powerful, a chance to be a mother again. The birthday ended quietly, but no one would forget that moment for the rest of their lives. The request Lily made was simple, but it changed everything. It didn't need loud promises or legal papers. It didn't need anything except love. And from that day on, everyone in that mansion knew that whatever time Lily still had, she wouldn't live it alone. She already had the love she asked for. The request Lily made on her birthday did not leave Grace's mind for even a single day. After hearing Lily say she wanted her as a mother until the day she died, Grace felt something change inside her. She started thinking not only about caring for Lily, but about saving her. She knew the doctors had little hope, and every new treatment only slowed down the illness, never stopped it. Grace spent her nights searching for answers on her phone and reading medical articles she could barely understand, looking for anything that might give Lily a chance. That was when she found information about a specific type of transplant that could help Lily, but only if the donor was compatible. The risk was high, and the success rate wasn't guaranteed, but it was the closest thing to a possible cure she had ever seen. Without telling anyone, not even the nurses, she went to the hospital and asked to do the necessary tests. She waited anxiously for the results, afraid to hope too much. When the papers came back, she stared at them in shock. She was compatible. She could be Lily's donor. But there was one problem. The procedure could put her own life in danger. Grace spent hours sitting alone in her room, thinking about what the doctors told her. The surgery would require a long recovery time. There were risks of complications, and if something went wrong, she might not survive. But every time she imagined walking away and doing nothing, she saw Lily's face the day of her birthday, her hand holding hers, asking for a mother. Grace knew she already loved Lily like a daughter, and a real mother protects her child even when it hurts. She struggled for days, torn between the fear of dying and the fear of watching Lily die without doing anything. She didn't want to tell William yet because she already knew what he would say. She practiced the words in her head over and over before finally gathering the courage to speak to him. When she did, she expected an argument or cold rejection, but she wasn't ready for what actually happened. After she explained the transplant and admitted that she was a match, William didn't yell. He broke down. He begged her not to do it, his voice shaking in a way she had never heard before. He told her Lily already loved her, that she didn't have to risk her life to prove anything. And for the first time since his wife died, William began to cry in front of someone else. That moment changed something between them. The walls William had built for years didn't survive the weight of that conversation. In the days that followed, they began to talk more, not just about the transplant, but about everything they had buried inside. They sat together at night after Lily fell asleep, sometimes at the dining table, sometimes in the hallway outside Lily's room, like two people who didn't know where they belonged anymore. William told her about the day he found out his wife was sick, how he promised to be strong, and how he failed because he thought strength meant silence. He talked about the moment she died in the hospital, how he held Lily as a baby and felt nothing because he was too numb to feel anything at all. Grace listened without judging him. When he finished, she didn't say he was wrong or selfish. She understood because she had lived her own nightmare too. She told William about her daughter, a little girl who had the same disease, who loved to draw and laugh, and who slowly faded in her arms. She told him how she woke up every day for years, feeling like she didn't deserve to still be alive when her daughter wasn't. William didn't look away. He didn't try to fix her pain. He just listened, and that was enough. They discovered something neither of them expected. Their losses were different, but their grief was the same shape. Two people who had been living like ghosts finally saw someone who understood. That connection didn't erase the sadness, but it made the sadness less lonely. For the first time, William asked about Grace's feelings instead of just her duties. For the first time, Grace let someone take care of her instead of pretending she was always fine. They found comfort in each other, not with smiles or perfect words, but with the simple truth that both of them were tired of hurting alone. What began as shared pain slowly turned into something softer: trust, respect, and the beginning of love. It wasn't dramatic or sudden. It grew in small moments. When William brought Grace tea without being asked, when Grace reached for his hand without thinking, when they caught each other looking at Lily with the same fear and the same hope. Neither of them planned to fall in love. It didn't feel like something they chose. It felt like something that had been waiting for them, hidden under all the sadness. They didn't say the words out loud yet, and they didn't kiss or make promises. But it was there, real and undeniable, in the way William looked at Grace like he was afraid to lose her too, and in the way Grace started imagining a future that didn't end in emptiness. They were still surrounded by tragedy. Lily was still sick. The transplant was still dangerous. But now, instead of facing everything alone, they were facing it together. Two broken hearts that never expected to beat again had found each other in the middle of a nightmare. And even though the risks were still there, something inside both of them had already changed forever. The surgery began at sunrise, before most of the staff inside the hospital had even started their shifts. The lights in the operating room were already on, and the medical team moved with calm urgency, preparing every instrument, checking every detail. Lily was taken in first, still asleep from the anesthesia, her small body covered with warm blankets so she would not feel cold. She had no idea what was happening, no idea that Grace was already in another room, being prepared for the same surgery. William stood outside the glass wall, watching Lily being taken in. He tried to keep his breathing steady, but his hands shook. He wanted to be with her, to hold her hand, but he was not allowed inside. He knew the surgery was Lily's only chance, but knowing that didn't stop the fear. On the other side of the hospital, Grace lay on another table, already connected to machines. She had signed every paper, accepted every risk, and even smiled at the nurse who asked if she was sure she wanted to continue. In her mind, it wasn't a decision anymore. It was something she had to do. She didn't get to see Lily before the surgery, but she whispered her name before closing her eyes. She was not afraid for herself. She was only afraid of Lily not surviving. Hours passed. The doctors worked with focus, taking every step exactly how they had practiced. William waited in the hallway, unable to sit still. He alternated between pacing, staring at the clock, and pressing his hands together like he was praying, even though he didn't believe in anything anymore. Time felt slow, like the hospital had paused. Then finally, one of the doctors came out to speak with him. He said the transplant was a success and Lily's body had accepted the donation. He even smiled, something doctors train themselves not to do until results were confirmed. William felt relief so strong that he almost fell into the chair behind him. He didn't cry, not yet, but he felt like he could breathe for the first time in years. But then the doctor's smile faded and he hesitated before speaking again. He explained that Grace had suffered complications during her part of the surgery. They were trying to stabilize her, but she wasn't responding well. William froze. He had expected stress, fear, maybe even a long recovery, but not this. He asked to see her, but they wouldn't let him into the room. He could only wait again, trapped between hope and dread, until the second doctor came out, the one who didn't smile. His face was tired, and his voice was quiet when he said the words William never wanted to hear. Grace didn't make it. The numbness returned instantly, the same numbness William felt the day his wife died. He couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't understand how a person who brought so much life into his house could now be gone. The doctor placed 2 envelopes in his hand, explaining that Grace had left them with instructions in case she didn't survive. One envelope had his name, and the other had Lily's name written in large, uneven letters, as if Grace wanted to make sure Lily could read it when she woke up. William didn't open his right away. He stared at the letters, barely able to hold them, as if opening them would make everything true. Meanwhile, Lily was slowly waking up in a recovery room, still weak, still unaware of what had happened. The nurse told William he could go to her, and he forced himself to walk there, even though his body felt too heavy. When Lily opened her eyes, the first thing she asked was if her surgery was done. William told her yes, and she smiled weakly, touching the bandage near her chest. Then in a small voice, she asked where Grace was. William tried to speak, but his voice broke. He didn't want to tell her yet, not while she was recovering, not while her small smile was still there. The truth came out anyway. Lily stared at him for a long time, trying to understand what his silence meant, and then she asked the question that shattered him. "So now I have 2 mothers in heaven, Daddy." William pulled her into his arms and held her tightly, unable to say a single word. He didn't correct her. She wasn't wrong. She had her first mother, who loved her before she could speak, and now she had Grace, who loved her enough to give her life in exchange. Later, when Lily was resting again, William finally opened the letter Grace had left for him. Her handwriting was careful, but the ink was smudged in places, as if she had written it while crying. She wrote about how she had no regrets, how meeting him and Lily had healed parts of her she thought were gone forever. She wrote that loving Lily had given her purpose again, and loving him had given her courage. And then, at the end, she wrote one sentence that he whispered again and again, with shaking hands. "If loving someone is the same as living, then I live twice." Lily listened in silence, tears sliding down her face, not dramatic tears, but the kind that fall when a child understands something too big for her age. That night, the mansion was quiet again, just like before Grace arrived. But the silence was different this time. It was not the cold, empty silence of a house without love. It was a calm, respectful silence, the kind that follows a miracle and a sacrifice at the same time. Grace was gone, but everything she gave, her time, her heart, her life, stayed inside those walls. The house wasn't healed, but it wasn't broken anymore either. It was full of memories, full of love, and full of the pieces she left behind. And in that silence, William and Lily held each other, knowing that love didn't end just because a person was gone. Love was still there. Love was the price Grace paid, and also the gift she left forever. Months passed, and Lily was finally strong enough to walk outside on her own again. She still moved slowly, but she no longer needed help just to stand or breathe. The doctors said the transplant had worked better than expected, and every new exam showed improvement. Her hair began to grow back, her cheeks gained color, and her smile appeared more often than sadness. The garden behind the mansion, the same one she used to stare at through the window, had now become her favorite place. She walked around touching the flowers, sometimes stopping in the exact spot where Grace used to sit and read to her. Lily talked to the air as if Grace was still sitting there, telling her what she had drawn that day or how many steps she could walk without getting tired. She didn't cry when she spoke about Grace. She smiled like someone who remembered a warm memory instead of a painful one. Inside the house, nothing looked the same anymore. The silence was still there, but now it felt gentle, not heavy. The house that had once felt cold now had open curtains, sunlight in the rooms, and soft laughter instead of echoes. William changed just as much as Lily did. He no longer hid behind work or stayed locked in his office. He woke up early every morning to eat breakfast with Lily, even when she only wanted half a piece of toast. He drove her to appointments, sat with her during checkups, and asked her questions about her day the way he never did before. He learned how to braid her hair, how to make her laugh when she was scared, and how to answer her hard questions without running away. The staff who worked in the mansion noticed the difference too. They had watched William live like a shadow, and now they watched him kneel in the garden to play with Lily, even if he got dirt on his expensive clothes. He didn't act like a boss in his own home anymore. He acted like a father. Every time Lily mentioned Grace, William didn't shut down or look away. He listened, he smiled, and sometimes his eyes filled with tears, but he never tried to make Lily forget. He knew Grace wasn't someone to erase. She was someone to honor. That was why William decided to create something bigger than a memory. With his resources and connections, he founded an organization called the Grace Miller Institute, a center dedicated to helping children with cancer who didn't have access to the same treatments Lily did. He wanted every child, no matter how rich or poor, to have a chance at life. Not just medical help, but emotional support too, the kind Grace gave. The Institute had playrooms, reading rooms, and private spaces for families to stay together. On the entrance wall, he placed a small plaque with Grace's name and a sentence she wrote in her letter: "If loving is living, then I lived twice." People who visited didn't know the full story, but they always paused to read the words. William visited the Institute every week, shaking hands with parents, talking with doctors, and making sure the place stayed warm, not cold like his house once was. He didn't want a building named after Grace. He wanted a legacy of kindness built because of her. Lily grew older, knowing her life had been saved not only by medicine but by love. She talked about Grace the way most children talk about family members they carry in their hearts, even if they're gone. She never stopped mentioning her. When people asked how many parents she had, Lily always said the same answer, simple and sure: "I had 2 mums, one who gave me life and one who taught me how to live it." She kept a small photo of Grace on her bedside table, the same one taken on Lily's first week in the mansion when everything had just begun. She looked at it whenever she missed her or whenever she felt scared about the future. The picture wasn't sad to her. It was a reminder that love doesn't disappear just because a person does. Lily didn't grow up angry about what she lost. She grew up thankful for what she was given. Every year, on her birthday, William baked a cake himself instead of buying one. Lily always asked for the same thing: 5 candles for her age and 1 extra candle for Grace. She placed it gently on top and lit it last. When the time came to make a wish, she held her hands together and said, smiling softly, "This one is for you, Mummy Grace." Some years she was stronger, some years she struggled more, but she never skipped the extra candle. The staff, The doctors, even the neighbors who sometimes joined the celebration, always grew silent for that moment. No one spoke, but everyone understood. That candle wasn't just a symbol of loss. It was a symbol of love that didn't fade. And every year, right after Lily blew out the candles, the air in the room seemed to move, not in a dramatic way, not in a magical way, but in a quiet way that made people look around without knowing why. Lily always smiled a little wider when that happened. She didn't say it out loud, but she felt it, like Grace was still there, not gone, just unseen. And in her heart, she heard the answer she believed was true. I never left. I'm extremely happy that you've made it this far. Thank you very much for watching. Comment below what you thought and what was the best or worst part. Don't forget to subscribe. Until next time.